I'm Chef Alan Barber, and I operate a small bistro in New Brunswick, Canada. But today, we're gonna make some tongue. This is beef tongue or ox tongue. We're going to turn this into something truly delicious and delectable. Beef tongue is available at your local butcher, maybe in your grocery store. It is an inexpensive cut of meat and it's very delicious. I've just trimmed the end off here. You can see the marbling in the beef tongue, and that almost looks like a Wagyu. There's so much marbling there. So it's truly delicious and beefy. There's just a couple of steps to go from something like this to something delicious that we can eat in a sandwich or put on a charcuterie board. So I'm gonna go through the steps. We don't really need to trim this up. We're gonna use it just like we got it from the butcher. We'll trim it up later. So the first step is to put the tongues back in the fridge, because we won't need those for a while, and we're going to make our brine. Putting the brine together is really simple. We're going to start with 600 grams or about 2 cups of salt. Then we have 400 grams of sugar. I'm using organic sugar, so it's a little bit brown, but any kind of sugar will do the trick. Then I have some black peppercorns, whole. This is about a tablespoon. And I've got some bay leaf. Throw that in. I have about a tablespoon of juniper berries, whole, and I have some whole cloves, again about a tablespoon. If you don't have any of these aromatics, you could use something else, or you could just omit them. The most important part is the salt, the sugar, and the water. 4 liters of water. Just going to bring this to a boil. Then I'm going to let it cool, and we're going to submerge our tongues in the brine. The brine has cooled down. I put it in an ice bath. We have just under 4 liters here. It's nice and cool, and it's ready for me to put the tongues in. The tongues are in the fridge, and now I'm just going to put the tongues in the brine. Now you'll notice that the tongues are going to float, so I'm going to put them in there so that they're fully submerged. And then I have a couple of small plates, and I'm going to put these plates in here to weigh down the tongues. Now these are ready to just sit in the fridge for several days. I'm going to put these in for anywhere between 5 and 7 days, depending on when I get a chance to take it to the next stage. The tongues have been in the fridge for 7 days, submerged in the brine. So now we're ready to move on to the next step, which is to cook the tongues. We're going to boil them in a pot for a long period of time, 2+ hours, until they soften up. So the first step here is I'm going to take my tongues out of the brine. Then I have my tongues here, and I'm just going to put them in this pot. Now into my pot with the tongues, I'm not going to add any salt because these have been in brine for a week, so they're quite salty. So we actually want the salt to kind of come out of them so they're not too salty when we go to eat them in the future. I'm just going to add some things in here, basically a stock around the tongues to help flavor them as they cook. So I have celery, and these things are just rough cut because we're not going to eat them. They're just for adding flavor to the tongue. I have some bay leaf here and some rosemary, about an onion chopped up, large onion. Then I have some rough cut carrot, some garlic, just whole cloves. I didn't even cut it up. I have a cinnamon stick I'm going to throw in there. Some more peppercorns, whole, about 2 tablespoons, and about a tablespoon of cloves. Anything that I just added now is sort of optional. If you don't like cloves, don't put cloves in. That's totally fine. Now I'm just going to submerge this in water, just until it's covered. And this is what we want. Now it's just a matter of bringing this up to a boil, then a slow simmer, and then we're gonna cook it for about 2 hours, maybe even longer. The last time I did one of these, I think it went for 3 hours. But what we're trying to do is soften up the tongue, and we also want to peel the tongue because, let me see, the tongue is a tongue, and it has taste buds on it, and those are kind of a little bit weird, and you don't want to eat them, and the skin on the tongue is tough. So once we get this cooked to a satisfactory level, that skin will just peel off. We'll see that step later, but that's our goal here. We're going to boil that until the skin comes loose. I don't want to boil it for the whole time. I just want to bring it up to a boil and then simmer. If you enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing. These are real recipes from my actual bistro. We've been running a restaurant for 13 years, and I've been cooking for a lot longer than that. And these are actual recipes that I make in the bistro every week, and I just bring you along with me. So these recipes work. I've done all of them multiple times, and they're also safe. So if you like that sort of content, there'll be more in the future. And if you subscribe, you'll be the first to know. The tongue has been simmering away for 3 hours, and now I've just let it cool down a bit. And here are our tongues. This broth here is totally delicious. So save this. You can use this as just a stock for anything else. Skim the fat off the top. You could peel these tongues, chop them up, put them back in here with some fresh vegetables, cook it a little longer, and have a stew. But it smells delicious. It tastes really good. So the way I could tell that the tongues were done is that the skin is starting to peel off pretty easily. I just sort of took it out while I was cooking with the tongs and just tried in a couple of spots to see if it was peeling. The other way I could tell that it was done is just like it's starting to be like pulled pork or pulled brisket. It's just really, in these areas here, it's just really pulling apart really easily. So now we're going to peel the tongues. So I have a little sharp petty knife, and I'm just going to use it to help peel this skin off. Kind of once you get it started, it comes up really easily and just peels right off. It's very satisfying and a little bit gruesome at the same time. So it's a couple weeks since I shot the beginning of this video, and I realized I didn't shoot an ending. So I found this piece of tongue in the fridge. I wanted to show you just what it looks like when it's cooked and when it's ready to be served. It's not going to win any beauty contests. It's not a particularly attractive piece of meat, but it is a delicious piece of meat. So you can either cut it across the grain or with the length of the tongue. The rest of the tongue is missing. Either way is fine. It's very tender and soft at this point after having been cooked for so long, so you don't really have to worry about it being overly chewy or tough. It's a really soft, easy to use piece of meat. And all we do here is we just take slices off thusly, and those slices are ready to be used on a sandwich or whatever. And it's really delicious. It's a very interesting cut of meat if you can get yourself into it. Highly worth it. This tongue recipe is delicious, and if you don't believe me, try it.